Improving health system remains government's priority. Report reveals decline in SOE's profitability and productivity. Peaceful protest in Wabeg town to delay recount of Kandep seat.
This is NBC Papua New Guinea National News.
Good evening, I'm Antonia Singut. The government says improvements to the country's health system remains a priority, despite significant challenges such as severe budget cuts. A recent review found progress in the health system in the past 5 years has been disappointing. But the Health Minister is confident positive change is on the way after a new agreement was signed today between the Health Department and the World Health Organization. Esther Bralinwani reports.
PNG still has one of the highest rates of maternal mortality. There have been small improvements in the past years, and health authorities want to see more.
After last year's in-depth midterm review of our national health plan, there was a need of identifying and implementing public health priorities, given sluggish progress against expected outcomes.
Just frankly mentioned, I'm very frustrated that this very beautiful country and great people, that in terms of health indicators and outcomes, it's not really much improving than it was supposed to be last 8 years.
The government admits the health sectors facing many challenges, including decentralization to the district levels. But the minister says budget cuts have hit hard.
Health sector financing is facing serious constraints.
But health authorities are confident partnerships with organizations like WHO will help to make the lives of Papua New Guineans better.
May not need finance, but we have to go with resilience and look at the issues, areas where we can help without the financial bit, and that's what we are refocusing to do.
The new 5-year partnership between the Health Department and World Health Organization will run until the year 2020. It has 4 key priorities, including addressing drug-resistant tuberculosis and HIV and reducing the number of women and babies dying in childbirth. Improving service delivery at rural outposts is also a key focus, as is strengthening the skills of health workers on the ground.
Strength is our people. We have experts in many different areas that will help the government coming to the right decision and help them also implement programs more effectively.
They are hoping to learn from the lessons of the past to help the people of Papua New Guinea live healthy and happy lives. Esther Bralinwani, NBC National News, Port Moresby.
There has been a steady decline in the profitability and productivity of state-owned enterprises in the country since 2005. This was revealed in a report by the Asian Development Bank, which was launched today during a breakfast hosted by the Port Moresby Chamber of Commerce. Titled Finding Balance 2016, the report assesses the financial performance of SOE portfolios in 10 developing Pacific Island economies, including Papua New Guinea. This is the fifth in a series of SOE benchmarking studies launched by the ADB in 2009. Gregory Avira reports.
Papua New Guinea, like other developing island nations, has its SOE portfolio made up of infrastructure service providers in a range of commercially oriented services. These include air and sea ports, water, power and other transport and commercial services. The report showed that despite large investments by the government, SOEs do not contribute much to the country's gross domestic product or GDP. This is an issue that was common amongst the 10 developing nations that were surveyed. Based on the report, improving productivity of SOEs can be achieved if measures to reform are undertaken. Christopher Russell, a co-author of the report and an SOE expert with ADB, while presenting the report, said such reforms can come in the form of strengthening accountability and transparency and effectively implementing policies that have been set to guide SOEs. He said apart from such reforms, SOEs should also be allowed to operate with minimal political influence at the board and management levels.
If you have a mix of political and commercial objectives, whether that be present at the board level or at the ownership level, we're going to find you can have value disruption.
The report also pointed out the need to encourage public-to-private partnerships by SOEs to improve profitability and performance.
We don't introduce private participants either through full privatisation, PPPs, contracting out, etc. Those gains will grow over time.
Gregory Avira, NBC National News, Port Moresby.
Interoil Corporation today announced at a special meeting held today, its shareholders overwhelmingly voted to approve the transaction with ExxonMobil Corporation. Of the votes cast at the special meeting, more than 80% were in favour of the proposed transaction. Interoil Chairman Chris Finlayson thanked shareholders for their overwhelming support for this value-creating transaction. He said this transaction delivers shareholders a material and immediate premium, a potential direct cash payment based on the Elk Antelope resource certification, and exposure to future value through ownership of ExxonMobil shares. Finlayson adds Interoil looks forward to continuing to work with ExxonMobil to satisfy the last required conditions and to completing the transaction promptly. The transaction is expected to close by the end of this month. Opposition leader Don Poilier says the sacking of 8 national pilots by Air Niugini is a poor decision and has called on the board to reconsider its decision. He said pilots know there are some problems within the company and have tried to address it internally, but this resulted in their sacking. Mr. Poilier says similar to the UPNG protests, these pilots were not protesting over personal issues, but on issues of national importance and concern. Jay Bakia reports.
8 pilots were recently sacked by the Air Niugini board for failing to attend work, resulting in disruptions of flights. Mr. Poilier said this afternoon that this was a very poor decision on the national flag carrier's part.
Poor decision. That's a sign of plutocracy, sign of kleptocracy, a sign of those wealthy and rich become the chairpersons and board members, and they sack those that stand up for their rights. Those who are abusing the offices, they go free. But those who are speaking against the abuse of office, abuse of powers, they are the ones who suffer. It's a very good example of what I've said, and I'm glad you raised that. The Air Niugini pilots, they do not deserve sacking. That sacking is unjustified. They are an issue. They have issues. I mean, look at this. For instance, the airline will not speak, but I'll speak for them. The airline engineers will not speak. The board will not say it. The pilots are very responsible. They cannot publicly utter it, but I'll utter it for them.
He pointed out that airplanes are very delicate and their conditions must be 100% at all times. According to the opposition leader, national pilots knew of some problems relating to backlog of orders on aircraft parts and called for something to be done about it. The backlogs on imports are due to the current shortage in foreign currency, and Mr. Poilier says the pilots were not acting out of self-interest, hence the sacking being unjustified.
Why are these backlog of orders not being cleared? We don't want to fly these planes in this form. So they are not just pilots, they are Papua New Guinean citizens. They're carrying Papua New Guineans at the back. They've got their children. They want that plane to be of high standard, you know. I did not want to say these things because I don't want to frighten people. But now that the pilots have been speaking that silently to the management, how can we solve this issue? Now they realize that it's happening because of a much bigger problem, and that is the cash flow problem. It's an economic management problem. So they can't hold it any further. They're saying, look, Prime Minister, change this.
He further called on the board of Air Niugini as well as the UPNG Council to reconsider their decisions for terminating pilots and students who were protesting on the country's behalf. Jeheb Akia, NBC National News, Port Moresby.
A Papua New Guinea peace activist is disgusted at the lack of interest given by the country to commemorate World Peace Day. Founder of Wat Kiri Peace and Good Plus Sindown Foundation, Wat Kiri was not too happy at the way PNG commemorated the day yesterday. At the Foundation's humble office in Port Moresby, little under 20 people gathered to mark the United Nations sanctioned International Peace Day. Bradley Gregory with this report.
A small group advocates for a big cause. These are members of the Wat Kidi Peace and Good Pelesindaun Foundation, one of the organizations with a mission to promote peace.
The foundation has been in existence for almost 3 to 4 years now. But the idea was conceived by myself about 13 years ago or 12 years ago.
The group is perhaps the only one that is observing World Peace Day. Members of the foundation have come from even the Highlands to Port Moresby to mark the event.
This is my country, Papua New Guinea, my land and my background. I seek to live with my land. The green jungles and blue seas seek to live with me in harmony. No wars, no conflicts. One tribe, one country. True peace is in the presence of God Almighty. God bless Papua New Guinea.
The United Nations in 1981 unanimously established the Peace Day through one of its resolutions declaring the day devoted to peace commemoration. Elsewhere in the world, it's been observed. PNG is a member state. For years, the country has not observed the day as it should.
I want to blame all of us, Papua New Guineans, including myself. We should have observed this day a bit better. I regret it, but I think we have started this Peace Foundation, and we're going to take ownership of this day in Papua New Guinea from now onwards. And we'll make it better next year. But I pray to the good Lord that He will see to it that this day will be observed better.
Peace is the topic of the world when the world is in war with terrorism and separatist groups like ISIS continue to grow. Domestically, violence and law and order issues still remain a challenge for the country. With ethnic clashes still active in societies, peace echoes a still voice in the country where many nations are one. Bradley Gregory, NBC National News, Port Moresby.
Hundreds of candidates, their supporters from Kandip and around Enga province took to the streets of Wabek town today to stage a peaceful protest march. They expressed their grievances through a petition in which they demanded the Electoral Commission to delay the recount while awaiting the outcome of the slip rule application filed by the opposition leader and Kandip MP Don Polier. They stated it would be fair and transparent for the Commission to delay the recount until a ruling is handed down on the slip rule application before the court. Receiving the petition in front of a packed crowd, the returning officer and provincial election manager, Henry Kakas, and the provincial police commander said they had genuine grievances. The recount of the Kandip seat has now been delayed. We now look at the weather preview with James.
Thank you, Antonia. Your weather in brief, some centres will have fine weather conditions, whilst others will experience cloudy conditions and thundery showers. Join me later in the bulletin for all your weather details. Back to you, Antonia.
Thank you, James. Coming up after the break, Prime Minister wants strengthening of economic and political relations with Bangladesh, and Leh District Committal Court receives brief files of Dr. Alphonse Rongap Sr.'s murder. Stay with us on NBC National News.